Let's get a little more perspective on the compensation story from a compensation expert, Brian Foley, who runs his own firm, Brian Foley & Company here. He's been advising companies on CEO compensation for more than 30 years. Brian, thanks for your perspective. I know you've been following this BP story for months now. Let's start with the severance.
Right.
1 year's worth of salary. We knew that was likely going to be the case based on what BP had already put in their annual report for directors who lose their title. It's more than £1 million. You could ballpark it to $1.5 million. But given the circumstances, is this the right move for the BP board to be making?
It was a contractual obligation that they had, and I assume that they decided to stand by the contractual obligation. I'm sure there are those who would have said, you know, the right thing to do is for both sides to agree to waive the severance, but that hasn't happened.
So if you were advising Tony Hayward, for example, what would you have said? Would you have said, you know what, there could be some goodwill in not accepting that money that might outweigh $1 million?
It's a tough call. The severance actually is fairly skinny at one-time salary, and a U.S. CEO going out typically would get substantially more. So he's already taking a lot less. He's taken a huge hit on his stock and his stock options. He's not getting a bonus. $1 million would have helped. It would have been a gesture, but I'm sure he would have been criticized even if he gave up the $1 million. So it may be a no-win situation.
But it's tough for a lot of people to understand that, you know, he's going to have to walk away without stock-related compensation. The stock has lost its value. That's why, to a certain extent, he's walking away with that. And other people say Tony Hayward is someone who's been with the company for 28 years. That's true. But he was only CEO for 3 years, and the only year he had a salary that was north of £1 million was last year.
That's true, but last year his total compensation was north of £3 million.
Yes.
So he is walking away with only a third of what he made last year. So one has to put it into perspective. I think at the end of the deal, at the end of the day, it's the deal that they've struck.
You said putting it in perspective, and you highlighted their examples of other CEOs, CEOs here in the States that take home bigger packages in severance cases.
Right.
But isn't this a completely unusual situation? I mean, can you think of any comparable situation to this one?
Well, in BP's own history, the last CEO, Lord Brown, left under a cloud, facing perjury charges, and when he walked out the door, he got $5.7 million in severance.
But can we really compare the Brown situation to this one?
No, in terms of the Brown situation was a personal problem. This is not just a problem for BP, it's a problem for the Gulf Coast.
The reason I'm asking a lot of these questions is we know there are pension funds that have lost money because of the decline of BP stock.
Right.
Some of them right now are suing BP. We know that there's an endless list of people in the Gulf with claims related to the spill. And you have to wonder whether they're going to feast on this.
They're going to do with it what they're going to do with it. He's got two pieces of compensation that we know of. He has the pension, which is almost $17 million on a lump sum basis. It works out to about $900,000 a year in dollars, and he's got the $1.6 million in severance. I think that's a. I don't see him, as a practical matter, waiving the pension. I don't see the company trying to dispute the pension because he does have 28 years in. And £1 million, although it's a significant amount in the scheme of things, tiny.
Brian, thanks for your perspective. That's Brian Foley of Brian Foley & Company, a compensation expert.